There is not a square inch in the whole domain of our human existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, mine.
From the opulent frescoes of the Renaissance to the soaring architecture of medieval cathedrals, the church was once a central patron of art, commissioning works that still captivate us centuries later. Over time, however, that partnership between the sacred and the creative seemed to wane in many ways, leaving us to question how these realms might intersect again. Well, today, we're witnessing a renewed interest in the integration of art and faith, with churches and faith-based communities, even our work here at the Collaborative, as folks attempt to re-engage the public square that spark thoughtful conversations and inspire vibrant expressions of creativity. Well, so it's into this revival that ministries like the Arts Fellowship Orlando step, bridging the gap and encouraging artists to bring their full selves, heart, craft, and soul to the cultural sphere. And so that's our focus today, the Arts Fellowship Orlando. This is a unique opportunity for mature Christian creatives in the greater Orlando area to engage in a 6-month exploration of the intersection of art and faith. And so today, I'm thrilled to have with me a dear, dear friend and family friend, leader of the Arts Fellowship Orlando, Karen Thigpen, woo-woo, and 2 arts fellows who have gone through the program, Xavier Moss and Rebecca Fox. Welcome, friends. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for
having me. So, Rebecca, you're coming to us from St. Paul, Minnesota, right?
Yes. That is correct. Yes.
Xavier, are you here in Central Florida?
I'm here in pollen-drenched Orlando.
We had some rain this week, so that helps. And Karen, tell us how far away you're coming to us from.
I'm coming from the offices of First Presbyterian Church of Orlando right
now. Yeah, she's right next door to my office because sound and microphones and all that jazz, it doesn't work in one place. Well, friends, welcome. So to our viewers and listeners, welcome to Nuance, where we seek to be faithful in the public square. I'm Case Thorpe, and I want to encourage you, please, to like, subscribe, and share that others might know that we're here. So a little bit of background on our very unique and special guest. Karen Thigpen is the co-founder of the Arts Fellowship Orlando and a member of First Presbyterian Church of Orlando. She's originally from Michigan and holds a bachelor's from the University of Michigan. Yet from there, the world was her oyster. She spent decades in the world of dance as a choreographer, performer, and instructor, with stops in New York City, South Florida, and then here to her home. She's also held various executive leadership roles in both for-profit companies and in the nonprofit sector. She will graduate this May from Reformed Theological Seminary with a master's degree in biblical studies, which, friends, that is so impressive. And Karen, if I could say so myself as your peer, you're not a spring chicken. and to get a master's degree, not as a spring chicken, like you go, girl. That's awesome.
I'm going to get you back for that one, Case.
She is a mother of 4, and 2 of hers and 2 of mine are very close friends, a wife of 1, and they make their home in Winter Park, Florida. Our first arts fellow to introduce to you is Xavier Moss. Xavier is a Jamaican artist who focuses on the intersection of flora, fauna, and faith. Raised in Okinawa and England and Florida, wow, Xavier, there's a story. He studied biological illustration at the University of Florida. He now teaches art at the Artistic Hand, the Orlando Museum of Art, and Mass Art. He's also a digital missionary, one who creates digital content for Christian and non-Christian audiences, incorporating video and the visual arts. And our other arts fellow is Rebecca Fox. She is a professor at the University of Northwestern St. Paul. Her writing investigates the overlapping of narrative, imagination, and theology, drawing upon fairy tales, mythology, and folklore for inspiration. She writes about memory and time and the narrative, small or large, that shape us, both as individuals and communities. She was born in Chicago, raised all over the country in a variety of locales, holds a bachelor's from Wheaton College and a Master of Fine Arts in Fiction from the University of Central Florida. Well, friends, that's a lot to say, but you are substantial folks, so I really appreciate your time. Well, let me just say, Arts Fellowship Orlando is such a unique and a special, it is a ministry, but it's so bigger, so much more than just your normal type ministry. Karen and her compatriots several years back said, let's go for this, and had this vision. And I'll tell you, as a pastor in now 25 years of experience, I knew the Lord was behind this work because I've never seen a project come together as quickly with the right leadership, the money, and the creative model that met an audience. Like, wow. So often there may be ministry ideas or money and you have people wanting something, but to see all those intersect so quickly, Collaborative was honored to be a part of helping to get this off the ground. So if you would, Karen, start at the beginning of Arts Fellowship and what was the impetus and how has it developed over the years?
So the impetus was back in the winter of 2022. I had a conversation with my co-founder, Lisa Brockman. We were just two girlfriends having lunch. And she had shared with me, she had just had a book published and she had been invited to participate in Cru's Transform Ministry, which walked alongside artists in the marketplace, exploring the intersection of art with their following of Christ. And as she was telling me this, I felt prompted to kind of tell her about an inkling I had had in the city of Orlando. And I had observed that there was not really a platform or a space for people who were following Christ that also wanted to produce original work that expressed their faith. I had been for a time in New York City, and there were platforms where you could share work that was in progress, but I had not seen anything in Orlando that was a mechanism for people who were creative across the spectrum of the arts. And so I had thought, would it be great to have a concert or a showcase a couple times a year that did that? And as Lisa listened, she opted to put me in touch with another missionary who had a similar vision. And the three of us, Lisa, Matt Guilford, and myself, brainstormed and thought about what we were observing would be a great thing in the city of Orlando. And that was what became the Arts Fellowship.
And now we're on our fourth cycle?
That's right.
And give folks an understanding what are the components of the program.
Sure. So the Arts Fellowship is a 6-month experience. It's a 6-month cohort experience that takes individuals who are active professional in the spectrum of the arts, from literary, performing to visual arts, brings them together. And over those 6 months, they begin to work on an original project that shares gospel truths in unconventional ways in their artistic medium in which they have expertise. And over those 6 months, as they're developing that project, they work under the mentorship of a renowned artist in their field. They experience discipleship, they experience theological reading and discussion, and they experience the opportunity to practice presenting their work to other people to help them see the truths, the inspiration, and the construction of their work.
Mm-hmm. And you have had artists as varied as like a writer and Rebecca, a theater, musical theater, sculptors, dancers. It's just really impressed me, the wide range of artists. That's very special. Well,
and the diversity has been like the faith backgrounds, the ethnic origins, the traditions. It's been very diverse and varied.
Mm-hmm. Now, you say faith backgrounds, you mean within the realm of Christianity?
The different Christian traditions within mainline Christian, within the Orthodox faith.
And I've appreciated how you're looking for Christians who are serious about their discipleship. They are looking for not just this artistic growth, but their spiritual growth. And Christianity is not just a shingle for these artists.
No, and they're also craving community. They're craving to work in collaboration, to have other mature adults press into their work and invite them into their process for the sake of mutual encouragement.
Yeah, yeah. I have always appreciated the maturity that folks bring to this experience. Now, did you mention the grant that they received for their project?
I didn't mention it. So through the generosity of the Heart of the City Foundation, each artist is given a $5,000 scholarship. And they're free to put that toward whatever expenses they need to materialize their work.
I mean, if I do say so myself, having helped secure that funding, I just that is to me so powerful, a very unique difference maker. As you've explained to me, Karen, over time, how the two things artists are hungry for are audiences to appreciate their work and the resources to produce such work. And that doesn't necessarily mean money. It might just mean the time and the space. But by giving a grant with little strings attached, you've said if you need it for supplies, if you need it to rent space, if you need it to offset income so you don't have to wait tables, there's a great openness for how these grants are used to help folks get their projects done.
Well, and the scholarship money too, like you said, is intended to afford space for them to study, not just create, but to read, and to spend time in community, because we think that is a critical part of the creative process.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, Xavier, let's start with you. How did you hear about the program and what was your journey like?
I think Instagram was the first method that it just popped up, and the algorithm was algorithming that day. And I saw this thing about, are you an artist in Orlando and also like Christian? And I was like, yes.
What?
Yes, those things apply to me. And so it was the first time I don't know if that was the first. I don't think it was the first cycle. It must have been the second one. Or no, it might have been. Actually, it was the first one, I guess. Cohort that I applied to. But I saw it and I was like, let me check this thing out. And then it definitely piqued my interest because it had two of the very big parts of my life. An invitation for a Christian artist community to, receive, constructive feedback and to grow and to network with other Christian artists in the Orlando area. So that sounded like a good time to me. So I think that was fall of 22. It must have been when I first saw that. Yeah.
What was your project?
So I applied in fall 22, but I didn't get until the next cohort after that. So
spring of 24.
Yes. Yeah. I have to all the
because they run the spring, January to June.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but I met Matt, Karen, and Lisa, and I honestly would have to ask Karen what I proposed at that time as my project, because what I ended up doing when I was in the spring 24 cohort was different from that. It still was related to the intersection of biological illustration and animals that pop up throughout scripture, but it had a more honed in focus on the a fluorescent odyssey of shame was kind of the through line of my work for the cohort, which I did not have that idea back in 22 when I first applied.
So Xavier, you said a fluorescent odyssey of, what was that third word?
Shame.
Of shame. Tell us more about that.
So basically, as I've been going back through the Bible and highlighting animal encounters that pop up a lot, I was starting to find that there was this association of shame-filled narratives that animals popped up in a lot.
Yeah.
And I had also been, walking through how shame kind of wedges the space between me and God, in that there's like a disconnect, and I fall into a spiritual rut because I'm like, oh, I'm not worthy to come to the presence. So, and then come to find out a lot of our figures throughout scripture had this same experience, and animals a lot of the times popped up in these instances. And I was like, how can
I've never noticed that. That's fascinating.
Oh yeah. Like, so I chose, originally I was super ambitious and I was like, I'm going to do 12 paintings in this 6-month period. And then Karen was like, no, And I was like, okay,
Wait a minute, I'm
let's.
sorry. I've heard that no.
Yes.
No. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, surely, I felt like it was like Abram and God dialoguing before he gets to Sodom and Gomorrah. That was like Karen and I.
Wow. Now,
And
who is who? Should I dare ask?
who? I think I was definitely trying to do some haggling. And, and so it was 12, and then it was 6, and then it was like, and then we finally got down to 3, and 3 was like, okay. And initially I thought, like, that doesn't seem substantial enough for like 6 months of work. But at the end of that, like come May, I was like, thank you, Karen, for having the vision to know that that would have been bad if I had been responsible for 6 24 by 30. Like, you can see neither of these ones were ones that were in the fellowship, but they're 2 by 3 foot paintings. So,
and for those listening, he's pointing over his left shoulder to
yes,
some paintings in progress.
Go watch the YouTube feed, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have been insane. So we got it down to 3, and then with those 3, I was kind of mapping out. It was Peter, David, and then the prodigal son, who all have varied experiences with shame, but all have experiences where animals also feature heavily in the highlight moment of shame. So with Peter, it's the denial of Christ. The rooster crows, and that's how he knows he messed up. But then later on, spoiler alert, when he gets called back to ministry despite his denial, it's this image of sheep that Christ uses to say, feed my sheep.
Wow.
And then with David, it's imagery in it's like Psalms 51 that comes up or between there and the actual prophet Nathan coming and getting him to out himself for what he did with the affair with Bathsheba and the death of Uriah. Lambs play a huge part in all of that. And then with the prodigal son, at his lowest moment, when he, tells his dad, I wish you were dead, give me my inheritance, runs off to the land, and then there's suddenly economic catastrophe and famine. He catches himself from what we assume to be a Jewish background, tending pigs. He's literally in the pigsty and contemplating, like, I'm not better off than these animals, which in my earlier days I would never have been close to, but now it feels like even they're above me and I'm not worth anything.
Oh man, that's now I'm going to pay more attention.
Please, that's what artists make you do.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yes.
And I need help. Xavier, over your right shoulder, is that one of the paintings from this series?
No, this is when I started it before the fellowship and finished it after it. Like all good artists, there are some paintings that just take a good minute. No, this one is based on the Trinity, but associated with all their animal counterparts that are mentioned in scripture. So you have the Lion of the tribe of Judah, Jesus as the lamb that was slain, and then the Holy Spirit as the dove.
That's great. That's great. So, Rebecca, what drew you to the Arts Fellowship?
Oh, I was thinking about that question because I was part of the inaugural fellowship, so the first round. So it's been a few years now, and I just I have kind of enough distance from being part of it now, or maybe I should say the beginning of being part of it, because my relationship with AFO is still so ongoing, and I'm so thankful for that. But when I look at it as the story of how kind of AFO entered my life, and I just have these words of this feeling of gracious inevitability. Of course this had to happen. Of course I had to be part of this. And I guess what I mean by that is providence. But just wow, the fact that I got to be in that spot at that time, to be part of the beginning, and just like seeing how much my life has been kind of changed in the trajectory since that. But I'm not originally from Orlando. I don't live there now. I love Orlando dearly.
And we
So
miss
grateful
you.
for
We miss you.
I miss you guys. And but I came to Orlando because I was offered a place at the University of Central Florida in the MFA Creative Writing program, which it's very hard to find places to like be offered spots in those kinds of programs. So it was like anywhere that was going to pick me, I was going to be ready to go. Like I could have gone to Iowa or to Cornell or to like I didn't get accepted there. I'm not claiming that I got accepted everywhere. You get like they take like 6 people a year, but like those are the kinds of places I was applying to. And so I didn't know where I was going to end up. And it was like, oh, I'm going to move to Orlando. And I pack everything in my little car and drive across the country. And here I am in Orlando. And so I got involved at First Press, start meeting people, and just like I'm in this time of in graduate school for 2 years of this really intense creativity. My learning curve is just it's not even a curve, it's like a straight line. And it's a total like to fit or the theme of Orlando, like a straight up roller coaster. I'm learning so quickly. My craft is just exploding. I'm in love with that. I'm also like growing in my faith, just continuing that. But those things aren't together, right? I'm the only believer in my cohort in grad school at that point.
Wow.
And I loved my experience in grad school, but there was also something lonely, right? There's a part of me that wasn't like fully understood. And even what I was trying to do in my writing and my stories. And so I'm living in that tension and I'm thankful for that. But then also, I would be in my church communities and, the people I was closest to would always support me in like my art, but like, again, no one quite understood it. And so, yeah, even sometimes at church, it would be lonely. Of like, I might be the only artist or the only like artist who's like, openly doing this and pursuing this professionally in the room. And there's that loneliness. And so like, I'm having conversations and had a lot of conversations with, Tanner Fox and Alexa Rossi on staff there at First Press about these
They're
concepts.
good
And I
ones.
remember, love them. And I remember so clearly, like we'd had these conversations. They knew I had this ache in my heart to like bring these parts of myself together, like that I always believed were together. And I knew were, but like I didn't have the community, the support to like, really explore that. And to have the language. That's something that AFL really gives is like the opportunity to press into the language to be able to articulate how your art and your faith truly are integrated. And so, but Alexa told me once, she's like, Rebecca, you've got to pay attention because I'm just hearing people talk at First Press. Like there are ideas in the works. There are other people out there who are excited about that. And then one Sunday she grabs me and she's like, I have to introduce you to Karen. And I remember just being dragged across the fellowship hall and like, Karen, Rebecca, you guys need to talk. And so we start talking and Karen's like, give me your email. I'll let you know when applications open. This is actually happening. And I have no idea what this actually is. It was so fresh and new at that time, but I was like constantly like updating my email for months, updating refreshing my email, refreshing the website of like, when's it going to be open? And then lo and behold,
Her
there's
children
the
do that too.
application. What's that?
Her children also are refreshing, waiting to hear from months.
Yeah, so I was just like, I was hungry, and I was ready, and I like could not get that application in soon enough. So then I find myself doing that. Yeah.
Okay, like Karen, the joy, the energy, this testimonies from Rebecca and Xavier. Like, think back 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, did you dream? Have you just been blessed beyond belief?
The beauty of this is it just feels like we're being obedient, that
Mm.
resources and opportunities and people are coming together. And so um, I've never held this vision really tight to my chest like it's mine. I feel like I've just been a conduit to some things that were supposed to be happening because,
Mhm.
like you said, Case, the resources and support came together so fast.
So
It's as if
fast.
you walked into
Yeah. Yeah.
a situation that had already been germinating.
Yep.
And I just get the privilege and pleasure of every year, I get to walk alongside 6 people that are brimming with intelligence and observation about the world around them.
Mm.
And I'm giving them a chance to just express in a really unique and exciting way some of
Mhm.
those things. So the friendships are just unbelievable.
Now, you've been working on your master's at Reformed Seminary through this time as well. Talk to us a little bit about the theological approach of the program, how you've evolved as you've put the theology of books to work in the world and ministry. Talk to us theologically of what's going on here.
Well, what it boils down to is if you believe that if you believe in the church, you believe that the church is commissioned by our Lord, and if you believe that all believers are members of the body, and that each of us is equipped with a gift to contribute to the growth of the body, then when you look at these artists who have extraordinary natural gifts, the question becomes, what does it look like to exercise your gifts for the sake of your faith and the faith of others?
Mm.
And in churches, primarily in many Protestant churches, we see the gift of music used
Mm.
very
Yeah.
well to
Yeah.
inspire masses, to change our hearts, to expand our imaginations. But there's so many other art forms
Mhm.
that we look at artists as an accessory to the church rather than an integral part of expressing its truth and its purpose.
Mm.
And I think that what we've boiled down to in the Arts Fellowship, we have the artists consider 5 main aspects of their life as a creative believer. And we ask them to think about the Trinity and the relational aspect of the Trinity, and that life and creativity and regeneration starts at the center of the Trinity, and what that means for their creativity, that their creativity is God honoring when it is coming out of a relationship that is with the triune God.
Mhm.
We look at the
Mhm.
role of idolatry and the way it's expressed in society and in our hearts as humans, and the way that the arts can help that or hinder that.
Mm.
We look
Mm.
at the notion of vocation, the entire biblical notion that you're called into work, and we
Mm.
consider as artists, if you have natural gifting, what are ways that are honorable to express your gifts. We look at the role of the artistic expression within church, which in liturgy, within preaching, within Christian formation, within evangelism, within assembled worship. We look at all these things, that the artistic expression is a critical role in helping people grasp complicated truths and manifest them in their hearts and minds. And
Mm.
then lastly, we look at the role of artistic expression of believers in the marketplace and in the city. What role do the arts have in sharing the love of Christ in unconventional and unexpected ways?
Mm. 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 And all this culminates with a showcase. In June of each year, we rent one of the major theaters downtown, the Dr. Phillips Center, and last year had 2 showings, so successful in the turnout. And Xavier, how was that? Were you nervous? Was it fun to be on a stage? Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, there were definitely some nerves, but before we got to the Phillips Center, I have to, applaud Karen and the rest of our leaders of AFO because there is adequate preparation. We have several works in progress crits um, to
Critique.
kind of find our footing and wording that
Yeah.
best expresses what we have spent 6 months studying. Because it's one thing to um, like put this together, be painting, be writing, choreographing, whatever it is. But then to be in front of, a couple hundred people and have to succinctly
Yeah.
deliver this is why this work is important to me and what it can do for you. like that's a tall order. So I know, like, it was nth hour level. That, like, the art was fine. The art was okay. We were trucking along fine on that. But it was the writing. I needed Rebecca to, come down and help me too. That my writing, it was, I felt like there was some parallel in, like, an alternate timeline of a conversation between Karen and I, where it was just the scene from The Notebook where it's like, "What do you want?" But we had, like, an
Amazing.
awesome,
That's
like, this
amazing.
one-on-one, like, intensive, just looking at, like, what I was trying to say. And then it was something that Karen is very good at asking questions that you would not ask yourself. And it was
Mhm.
one of my responses to those questions that she's like, "That that's what that."
There it
And I was
is.
like, "That's," basically, I kind of said something. I was like, "But that's not gold. That's just like a that's not worth including." And then she's like, "No, that is the thing that people aren't going to know. That's your personal thing."
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
so then that became, it wasn't a total rearrangement of, like, the idea, but it was like, "Oh, this is the vantage point. This is why you're
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
passionate about it." So then once we were able to, like, hammer that out, I felt a lot more confident going into the showcase.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I mean, I still had my index cards that I was, yeah, do what you got to do.
Okay.
But I was able to, like, you get through the first one, and there is a moment where it's like, I know I'm on right after this person, and then they do your intro video, and you're like, "Welp, guess I better survive the next 7 minutes."
Here we
And
go.
so get out there, and
Yeah.
you're going, and you're like, "Okay." And then you get a little bit more comfortable, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh, all right. This is my stuff. This isn't somebody else's, like, far removed stuff that I'm having to memorize. This is what I've
Right.
been spending 6 months talking about." So then it becomes a bit more naturally. And then before you know it, 7 minutes is up, and you're like, "Oh, okay. I okay, we survived that. Thank you, Lord." And
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it's a
you walk
wonderful night.
off.
Not only do
Yeah.
all the fellows present, but there are other artists that will come and share. Rebecca,
Mhm.
I believe your works in progress showcase that we hold in homes over
Yeah.
3 to 4 months of the spring. I believe we hosted one. Is that
Mhm.
right? That
Did
first
you?
year.
Yep,
Yeah,
you're
yeah. Oh
correct.
my gosh, you did.
And I remember you read the piece you were working on. And then
Mhm.
I didn't hear it again until the June showcase. And
Yes.
it, I, it was about tears. I
Uh-huh.
still remember about
Uh-huh.
tears. And when
Oh,
you
thank you.
explained where you were coming from, I learned, never learned this, that, and tell me if I've still got this right, the difference between fantasy and fable.
Ooh, yeah. So the word you're looking for is fabulous literature, which it is connected to
Fabulous.
fable, but it's not quite the same thing as fable. Yeah. So
Okay.
fabulous slash magical realism is this whole like style of writing. I I could talk for hours about this. This is one of my like areas of study, and I just love it so deeply. But yeah, so if you think about like fantasy as, which is another form of literature that I love to study, uh, but like you picture Chronicles of Narnia, going through the wardrobe door to get to this other place, or Lord of the Rings, right? It's another world, it's another place. People have, Harry Potter, they'll often ask, like, it's kind of in our world, but it's like not really our world. It's also different. But magical realism and fabulism is like, it's all about being our real, like, ordinary world lives that we live. And it's
Hmm.
also using these techniques of literary realism where it's all about a concept called verisimilitude of like it just really trying to represent the texture of life as it is, but it's like with a twist, with this
Hmm.
dash of the fantastic. And it treats the fantastic, it treats um kind of that element as like it doesn't second guess it, it doesn't explain it away, it doesn't say it belongs here but not over there. It's saying like this is just as much part of our lived reality, and of understanding our world as it is, as any other realistic element. And there's this long tradition, and I was really passionate. I love this kind of literature, but I wasn't seeing a lot of Christians doing it, and that didn't make sense to me, because to me that literature, that way of seeing the world, like, is so consistent with the Christian worldview of like of the miraculous, of learning to pay attention and lean in and to see um the like these just like outbreakings and flashings of the kingdom of God, all around us, of God at work. I think it's connected to this idea of like the sacred imagination and like how we're
Mm,
cultivating
mm,
that in ourselves. So how can the stories that we're telling and that we read kind of like wake up our imaginations to be able to recognize that? So the
right.
story that you're talking about, Case, like the whole premise was this girl is born and she cries diamonds, right? Okay, don't think too much
Yes.
about the logic of it.
She
All
cried
of her tears
diamonds.
are
I mean,
diamonds.
wow. Wow.
But what I wanted to explore there and wanted to make you think about was things about like about grief and pain and sorrow and also beauty, and like that's not an easy thing to think about, but like how to like there's also this element of like the commodification of other people's pain or sorrow
Mm,
versus instead the example of Christ, the one who bears all our sufferings and our sorrows, who takes that upon himself when he deserves none of that, and the beauty that emerges from his victory. Um and so like by kind of making it strange, making our world strange for a moment, it actually it wakes us up to the
yeah,
true, the miraculous, and like
right.
tries to break down this dichotomy of natural and supernatural, when it's like God is so here and so present and at work, and it should be stunning and shocking and awe-inspiring.
Mm-mm. Now, Karen, like Xavier has art that is explicit biblical imagery. Rebecca has referred to theological underpinnings, but she could have a piece that in no way mentions something that would be Christianese. Explain more for our listeners. Uh, do you have to do something from the Bible or from church culture?
No, and granted, Xavier's work, if you were to go to an art festival or an event where he's showing, you wouldn't know his work was explicitly biblical. There's no scripture on it, there's no cross.
Mm,
So I was actually standing with Xavier at one of his booths when he was showing, and I saw people walk up, and it was perfect because people walked up and they pressed into the work, and it gave him an invitation to explain what it was.
oh, that's
And
cool.
so, and that's really, in a nutshell, Case, the whole purpose of great art. Great art is rarely obvious. And so, the craftsmanship of a great artist warrants you press and look in and take in what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And the blessing is when the artist is present to engage with you, to tell you why they created that work. One of the things I've observed, which I did not expect when we started the Arts Fellowship, is every single time an artist proposes a subject, every time, it will take the bulk of the 6 months, but there is always some deep personal connection they don't even know about
Yeah.
to the subject
Mm.
itself. So what I've learned is creative believers are incredible observers of life, and they feel the rumblings of culture. And they might think they're making a social statement, but when you dig, there is something at the crux of what they're doing that has to do as well about them, what they're
Mm,
grieving, what they're celebrating, what they're contemplating, and it's beautiful and it's universal.
Mm.
that's great. That's great.
Love
Okay,
that.
Karen, in a minute, I want you to tell us all about the upcoming showcase. But first, Rebecca, Xavier, um, tell me one element of the program that meant the most of you. So we've heard about that meant the most to you. So we've heard about the grants for the materials or the discipleship that comes through theological study, spiritual formation, the mentoring element, the works in progress, the end showcase. What one element meant the most to you, Xavier?
Ooh, that was a good question.
Yeah, this is
Um,
tough.
ooh, I think one thing that I wasn't expecting from the program was the room to disagree, and let me back this up very, very quickly. Especially like because there's a like readings component to make sure. Karen kind of mentioned them earlier about the 5 big points, and they're readings that we do, and we come together and have monthly discussions about these, of like what stood out to you and whatnot. And I remember on the first one, there were some things that, and this is where the diversity of different denominations of Christianity comes up, where it's like, okay, there are some things in here that I don't know that I necessarily am like sharing, but it's not affecting the risen Christ that we all serve at the end of the day, and my ability to use my art to image him. So it was like at our first retreat, and I was like so petrified of like, there was this like, so what did you all think about the readings? And I was like, oh, Lord of mercy, I'm going to be the first one to be like, here's where I stood on this. I don't know if that's going to affect my 5 months. But there was space. There was space to, because as we were all super respectful of one another, it was a safe space to be like, hey, I was grappling a bit with this statement that popped up. Can you unpack that a bit for me, or give me a bigger context? And there was never like a, how dare you question. I usually go into a British voice when I do this.
Wow.
Yes.
Stick to painting, dude. Stick to painting.
I think just having that safe space, it wasn't something I expected necessarily, but it was definitely very much appreciated and allowed us to be more vulnerable as time progressed and it was reciprocated, because then they could ask us, they're like, oh, you asked us some questions, we're going to ask you some soul searching questions. And I'm like, okay.
That was more Boston than British, but go ahead.
Right. I know. We just transatlantic. We do
That's
it all.
right.
So.
Well, okay, Rebecca.
Oh,
One
this
element.
isn't my answer, but
Oh.
I do have to say when I first heard about the scholarship, like that was I don't say that is the number one most significant, but like when I heard about the scholarship, I wept. Like just
She
to
did.
like yes, Karen can testify. I mean, I think I cried a lot at different times during the program in like the best way possible, because I was just so deeply moved. But like about the scholarship, because I was overwhelmed, because there's so much in the world of art that's like according to this idea of scarcity and like not getting filled up, not getting resources, but to have a community, my community of faith, to come and say, we're going to make this happen to you. We're going to relieve this burden from
We
you
want to bless you.
in an extravagant way. Like I've never made a penny off of my art. That's not why I do it. I lose money every year just for my resources, but to have that burden lifted off of me was an incredible gift. And it gave me the permission to be able to have the other experiences that moved ahead. So like, I just have to say, like, that is such a big deal. It's not the thing, but it
makes a difference.
It creates the way. Yeah, it creates space. And so then I have to say, like, it really came back to community for me. That like, not that loneliness. Also, like, I'd been in a space where I was just with other writers who were sharpening me, which was amazing. But then I got to work with and collaborate with people in other art forms, and their eyes made me see things I hadn't seen before. I spent hours at coffee shops with other fellows, like not part of the programming, of us just dreaming together and like finding these intersections with our work. And I feel like this was coinciding with this time of like deep discernment, vocational discernment for me. And I don't think I would be sitting where I'm at the University of Northwestern St. Paul, teaching the next generation of artists in the same way if I would be like, I was interested in teaching, but I don't know if I would pursue the timing the way it happened without AFO, because it just like your experiences of sharing my work, of teaching others, of the showcase, of being pushed to articulate what I do, why I do it, what is my purpose in this. It created this spark of like, no matter what anybody else says, no matter any other expectation of me, I actually now can understand what is obedience, what is faithfulness in my life, or how God has made me to do this work. And now I need to pursue it relentlessly to share that. And so it was like this fire was lit in me. And it's been like, what, 4 years now since I kind of started this journey. And that is just like those flames are just getting fanned.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
I'm meeting other artists here in the Twin Cities who are hungry, and I'm like, I'm trained, I can help you. And like
Mm.
I'm encouraging other churches to just start conversations.
Well, Rebecca, you mentioned the community dynamic,
Mhm.
and that's why I have doubled down on fellowships. They aren't
Yes.
Sunday school and they're not small
Thank you.
groups. They
Yeah.
are, I think, an essential discipleship tool to help us prepare for the world in which we live as Christians.
Mhm.
And so, what's a fellowship? It's hard. It's not a tiptoe
Mm.
through the tulips. We're really going to get shaped here. It is over time. It's not quick and it's not over quickly. It's deeply formed in community, in deep relationships.
Mhm.
And it also shapes the heart with spiritual formation as much as the mind.
Yes.
And so our focus for the collaborative is that faith and work integration. And it's just such a joy to see artists and their work come together in beautiful ways. Well, it does all come together in the big showcase in June. Karen, tell us what's coming up.
So June 8th, there will be 2 presentations of the 2025 cohort presenting. If I can tell you who's in it, that might whet your appetite. But we
Ooh,
have a spoken word poet and singer songwriter. We have a jazz saxophonist who will be presenting an original song that has not only influences from John Coltrane, but his Haitian origins. We
and
have
he's performing at the Apollo Theater after
He's
our
competing
performance.
as a finalist at the Apollo Theater.
Man, I want to
We have
I want to be at the Apollo. I want to perform.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
we have an original choral piece that's going to have like a dozen singers performing an original work, just choral music. We have an oil painter. We have a documentary that's being shown, and we also have a graphic illustrator that is showing an incredible
Hmm.
journey through the Appalachian Trail.
Well, the works in progress uh, happened earlier this week, and wow, well, yeah, folks, come and participate because you will be very, very blessed.
So the
Well,
showcase is June 8th, Dr. Phillips
yes,
Center. Tickets go on sale to the public April 13th. The
okay,
shows
okay.
probably will sell out.
So you're hearing this after the tickets are already on sale, and yeah, don't delay because they will sell out. And so folks can go to fpco.org/arts. First Pres Orlando, fpco.org/arts to learn more about the program as well as to obtain tickets. If you'd like to experience more of Xavier's art, go to his Instagram page, xmossart, 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 and then to read some of Rebecca's powerful work and even to link to where it's been published, go to rebecca-fox.com. Rebecca-fox.com. Rebecca, is the Crying Diamonds piece there?
It is not,
Whoa!
unfortunately, like shortly after someone else published a similar premise.
Oh, come
So
on. They
I
ripped
am
you
not
off.
joking. Very different. And this
Lawsuit,
happens sometimes.
lawsuit.
But and I think it's an amazing work, different. So will find I my hope is that in time I will find another opportunity to
Okay,
bring my spin on it. But I do have some
sure.
other fiction out there that is I doing the same kinds of styles and things. So
Yeah.
the
Well,
piano player and the life cycle of clouds.
if you asked me, I'm sure yours was much better. Well, friends, I really appreciate your time. And listeners, viewers, thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and leave a comment. It really helps us to get the word out. You can go to our website, wecolabor.com, wecolabor.com for all sorts of content. Give us your email, and I'll send you a 31-day faith and work prompt journal. And you can find us across all the social media platforms as well. Also, remember our Formed for Faithfulness podcast. This is a weekly 10-minute devotional for the working Christian that follows the liturgical calendar. Many thanks to our sponsor, the V3 Family Foundation. I'm Case Thorpe, and God's blessings on you.